Hi, I'm Josh from FinalScanPro. In this video, we're going to explore the Vancouver referencing style. Vancouver style uses a numbered citation system, where sources are cited using numbers in brackets or as superscripts. Each source is numbered in the exact order it first appears in the text, and that number is reused every time you cite the same source again. The simplest and most common way to cite a source in Vancouver style is to place the citation at the end of the sentence. Another option is to integrate the citation number into the text. If you want to draw attention to the author, you could say, according to Clark, number 1, regular physical activity improves mental health. If you want to cite multiple sources at the same point in the text, separate the citation numbers with commas. If the sources form a continuous range, you can use a hyphen instead. If you're using a direct word-for-word quote from a paper, you must place the text inside double quotation marks. In Vancouver style, you can also include the page number with the citation if needed. At the end of your text, you must include a reference list containing all the sources you've cited. In Vancouver style, references are numbered in the exact order they first appear in the text. I hope you found the video useful. Finally, before submitting your work, don't forget to run it through FinalScanPro. You'll receive a Turnitin style similarity report with all issues clearly highlighted and color-coded. You'll also get a revision report with suggestions to fix the issues quickly. Apply the recommended changes, recheck if needed, and you'll have a clean, original paper ready to submit.